Hey there! So for today's lesson, we're going to learn constants, if-else and else-if statements, switch statements, loop statements, functions, and arrays in PHP. So without further ado, let's go straight to the report.
So first is PHP constants. So what is a constant? A constant is an identifier or name for a simple value. So the value cannot be changed during the script. So constants are like variables except that once they are defined, they cannot be changed or undefined. And note that unlike variables, constants are automatically global across the entire script. So let's have an example. So in PHP, if you want to create constant, there's a method called define inside. Then there you put two parameters. The first one is name and the second one is the value. So first let's have the name. So I'll write here hello. Then the value of the value. So I'll write welcome to BSIT 3C. Then echo hello. So hello here is our constant or name of our value nga welcome to BSIT 3C. Then we don't need the $sign like the other variables in PHP. So you just use whatever you defined here. So if i-run nato, so mo-output ang atong value nga welcome to BSIT 3C. And that's it. So kung unsa to atong constant diri nga gibutang is dapat mao pud atong i-declare nga variables diri para mo-output ang atong welcome to BSIT 3C. So next is PHP if else if statements. So if else and else if statements are conditional statements used to perform different actions based on different conditions. So if statement, it executes some code if one condition is true. Then else, if else statement, it executes some code if a condition is true and another code if that condition is false. While else if this statement, it executes different code for more than two conditions. So let's have an example. So first is let's define a variable and assign a value to it. So for example, first is let's create an if cases or if statement. So let's define a variable. So $sign. Let's have mood is equal to good. Then the if cases or if statement. So let's have if mood is equal to good, then echo have a good day. So if false, if this code will execute if true ang condition, so i-check niya first dali. Then if true ang condition, then output ni siya ang have a good day. So good man diri, then kita niya diri nga mood is equal to good. So it will execute, and that's it. Then let's have if else. So else echo how are you feeling today? So balik ta diri. So change na to ang value here. Go. So if false ang so if i-check niya ang condition if mood is equal to good, then if false ang condition diri, so mo jump siya here sa else, then mo print out ni ang how are you feeling today. So let's save. Kana. Then let's have an else if, so another conditions, another statement that we can add for evaluating yet another condition. So let's have here else. Then let's have another condition. So put mood is equal to bad. So let's have echo it just a bad day, not a bad life. So let's change the value here to bad. So it's going like this. So it tests niya if ang mood is equal to good. If that's false, so mo jump siya here. sa else if statement, then i-check niya ang condition. If mood is equal to bad, then true ang condition. So, execute ni siya and it's just a bad day, not a bad life. So, print out ni siya here. So, let's save it. Tara. And then, if none of these are true, then of course, it's going to do the same thing and jump back the else statement and execute. So, kung example is, change ni na to siya into go. So, parehas lang ganiha. So, if i-check niya ang condition diri, if mood is equal to good, if false, so mo-jump siya diri sa else if. So, check niya ang condition here. If mood is equal to bad, then if false lang japon, mo-jump siya diri sa else. Then, iyang i-print out ang how are you feeling today.
Now on to our next topic, which will be switch statements. Switch is used to execute a statement for multiple conditions. It's the same with if else, but mas efficient siya i-use if you have at least 3 or more conditions. Another thing is that switch statements is a fall through, meaning i-execute niya tanan statement same code after makita ang first match. Kaya dili man na siya muhunong if walay break statement same code. So let's take note of that also. Now here is a video clip of a sample syntax for switch statement. So mauni no ang sample syntax for switch statements. Now this is how it works. First we have a single expression n, which is often a variable that is evaluated once. Ang value aning n is then compared with the values nga naa aning cases. Kani label 1, label 2, and label 3. Now, pag naay match, ang block of code na naka-associate with that case, kay mao ang i-execute niya. And then, gamito nato ang break in order to prevent the code from running into the next case if nakita na niya ang match. After that, ang default, ang purpose aning default is use pag walay match nga na-found. So, let's take a look at my sample here. In here, I have variable mood with a value happy. So, dire nako gibutang gisulod nako si mood sa parentheses. And then, I have here 1, 2, 3, 4 cases. And then 5 including default. So, as what you can see, unique ang values ani each cases, right? I have multiple conditions. And then, since happy akong gi-set na rin nga value sa mood, ang basahon ana niya is kanira. Since, oh my god, I forgot. Wait, magput kog break. Okay, since nabot ka naman akong break, so dili na niya basahon kaning default, no? So, try na to run. Wait, asa man to? So, tara. So, mo niya siya, naka-display is sana all happy. Now, let's proceed to our next topic, which is PHP loops. Loops are used to execute the same block of code again and again as long as a certain condition is met. Now, the basic idea behind a loop is to automate the repetitive task within a program to save time and effort instead of manually doing it. PHP for loop. The for loop statement is used when you know how many times you want to execute a statement. While on the other hand, while loop loops through a block of code if and as long as a specified condition is true. Here you will see a quick demonstration of a sample syntax of PHP while and for loop. Now we have here a sample syntax for and while loop. Now let's start with the for loop first. So as what you can see, na ito look at counters. the init counter, test counter, and increment counter. Let's start with the init counter. So, kani siya, diri may tabo ang initialization, meaning we initialize the loop counter value, ani nga part, ang starting value sa atong loop. So, the next one would be the condition or the test counter. Now, this is where the evaluation for each loop iteration. So, if true ang condition, the loop will continue, and if not, the loop will end. And then the last part would be the increment or decrement counter. So it increases or decreases the loop counter value depending on what you put here. If the condition happens to be true, then muni ang ko na execute for each iteration. And ay hara siya mohunong if false na ang evaluation. Dito mag-start sa akong for loop. So nag-declare ko diri og variable na ko nga I, and then akong starting value for I will be 3. Akong condition is if I is greater than or equal to 1. And then, decrement dayon akong gigamit. So, akong gipa-echo diri ang value sa I. So, wait. Ato i-run. So, muna ni siya. So, the video starts in 3, 2, 1. Since 3 man to akong value, di ba akong starting value. So, ga-decrease siya kada iteration. So, muna ni akong while na syntax. So, first, nag-declare ko og variable n. Akong gisbut nga og value nga 1. And then, diri din sa condition na part sa sulod sa while is if n is less than or equal to 5. So, ay hara dayon ni mo execute. The number is value dayon sa akong n na variable. So, tanaw na to. Now, the number is 1, the number is 2. So, muna na.
PHP functions. So, ganita. These are the different types of functions in PHP. One is user-defined function, returning value function, variable function, internal inbuilt function, ug anonymous function. So, danita sa user-defined function. So, user-defined function. Function names follow the same rules as other labels in PHP. A valid function name starts with a letter or underscore, followed by any number of letters, numbers, or underscores. Function needs to be defined before they are referenced, except when function is conditionally defined. So, muna siya ang atong syntax kani. So, natay function dani nga function bar, tapos mo din yung parameters, tapos muna siya ang sulod sa function bar. So, kung tawagon nato ang function bar, ang output din yung magawas kay kani test function. Okay, sa user-defined manggod, ikaw manggod ang mag-provide or mag-create ka ng function. So, mo din siya din, nag-create kag function bar, tapos mo din yung sulod. Tapos kung tawagon mo siya, ang ma-output niya is kaning test function. Returning value function. This is same as user-defined function, but it will return some values based on past argument using return statement. So, dani sa returning value function, pagtawag sa function mo, return siya og value. So, dani mo ni siyang syntax. Natay functions, dani nga square, tapos kaning $len, tapos dani din is kanang na-value nga 4 nga i-time siya sa kaning $len, tapos nagkuan din siya, naghatag siya value nga ang value sa $len is 4. So dani ang ma-output niya nga value kay 16 kay 4 times kaning $len na ang value sa $len is 4 man. So 4 times 4 is equal to 16. So mo din siya din 16 din ang magawas din nga value dayon pag tawagon na nimo ni siya. So variable function. PHP support the concept of the variable function. This means that if a variable name has parentheses appended to it, PHP will look for a function with the same name as the whatever variable evaluate to and will attempt to execute it. This can be used to implement callbacks, function tables, and etc. So, dani, natay function dani nga ang pangalan kay bar. Tapos, mo din yung sulod na yun. This is the output for the bar function. So, tungod kay ay nagbuhat din ka og variable name nga foo, $foo. Tapos ang pangalan ay ang value niya is bar. So dani mo gud sa variable function, nag-set ka og variable nga nag-equate sa usa ka function. So dani dayon kay ang kuan man niya dani ang value sa $foo is bar man, tapos kani dayon ang function name dapon kay bar. So kung tawagon nimo ang kaning $foo nga nay open and close parenthesis, ang tawagon din niya dayon kay ang bar function. So ang ma-output din aning $foo pag tawagon nimo is kaning this is the output for the bar function. Internal inbuilt function. PHP comes with some standard functions and constructors. There are also some functions which require to enable PHP extension, otherwise wait the undefined function error will appear. So dani sa inbuilt function is kanang dili na ka mag-declare og function kay naa na siya daan. Kani internal inbuilt function is opposite ni siya sa user defined, which is nga sa user defined ikaw ang mag-provide or create sa function. So dani sa inbuilt wala di na ka mag-create kay naa na siya daan. Anonymous function. Anonymous functions, also known as closures, allow creation of functions which have no specified name. Closures can also be used as the values of variables. PHP automatically converts such expressions into instances of the closure internal class. Assigning a closure to a variable uses the same syntax as any other assignment, including the trailing semicolon. So, ang anonymous functions kay ang function siya nga walay pangalan nga kaya niya ma-access ang variables bisag na siya sa gawa sa function scope. So, dani variable nga $greet nga ang equal to function. Tapos napunta dani $name equal to QUEENIE. So mo ni siya ang sulod sa $greet. Para ma-access ni siya sa $greet ang kaning value aning $name, kinahanglan ka magamit og keyword nga kanang keyword use, tapos open and close parenthesis, tapos sulod din sa parenthesis is kaning $name. Kan siya. So kung tawagon nimo ang $greet nga variable, ang ma-output din niya ani is hello, tapos kanida yung value sa $name which is QUEENIE. So mo na siya ang kanang anonymous function.
So lastly, we are going to talk about arrays. An array is a special variable which can hold more than one value at a time. So naitulo ka types ang arrays sa PHP. First is ang index array. Index array is an array which is represented by an index number by default. All elements of array are represented by an index number which starts from 0. So ang syntax sa paghimo og index array is inani. So mag-declare ta og array name, so at pangalanan og data. Tapos equal to array. So mo ni ang syntax. Then ipamutang nimo ang values sulod ana ang array. So for example, JR then tatag integer nga value 80, then handsome, because why not. So muna siya ang atong array. Ang array na to is ang data, then ang values niya is JR, this is index 0, then index 1 18, index 2 kay male, index 3 kay handsome. So pag i-echo na ko ni siya, ang isa lang ka value ani nga array. Let's say for example kani. So ang i-echo na to is data, then isulod na to sa bracket ang index which is 1. Okay, start mo ta from 0, direct 0, 1, 2, 3. So kung i-echo na ko ni siya, then refresh na ko, so na ang 18. So if ang kuan ako ay kaning una, na siya. So ang i-echo niya kay ang J. Then para makuha ang value sa kung ang length sa array is inani, pwede na to gamiton ang count nga function. So for example, mag-take tag variable nga count. So ang count function, then isulod na to nga parameter ang array name. So basically ihapon ninyo kung pila ka values ang sulod sa array. So namatay 4. So kung i-echo na to ang count, dapat mo display ni siya og 4. So ni-display siya og 4. So muna siya ang index array og so pag determine kung pila ang values sulod ang array. Next is ang associative arrays. In an associative array, the keys assigned to values can be arbitrary and user-defined strings. So basically, ang difference aning associative array ug ang index array is sa index array, the index number is by default represented by a number which starts from 0. Pero sa associative arrays, pwede nimo i-rename ang indices para mas dali matiman-an. So for example, katulad dyan pong data nga array name. Tapos nani yung syntax, array name, then arrow which is equal sign and the greater than sign, name, age, description kay answer. So what this means is ang mga indices, unlike ganina which is 0, 1, 2, 3, ibutang na itong pangalan. So this time na name, age, gender, and description. So another function para mag-display ang indices sa isa ka array, tapos ang iyang corresponding value is this function nga print r. So kung i-echo na to siya, so nara array, then ang index name which is name kay JR yung value, then ang age kay 18, and so on. So unlike ganina sa index array, ang index name ani kay 0, 1, 2, 3, pero sa associative kay naa siya pangalan. So last is ang multidimensional arrays. The multidimensional array is an array in which each element can also be an array. and each element in the subarray can be an array or further contain array within itself, and so on. So let's take for example kanira gyapong data. Then ang iyang values kay example ganina kay ano man to, JR 18 male and handsome. Sorry. Pwede ta magbutang og isa pa ka value rather dire before or anywhere sa sulod aning array. So butangan ako ni siya another array, tapos ang values kay let's say 1, 2, and 3. So naa kay array sulod sa isa ka array. So if example i-split out na to ning kanilang siya nga value, sulod mo na siya sa first nga array. So ang nara na siya sa echo data, kani siya ang array index 0, then kani ang index 1. So na siya sa 1. Refresh na ito niya siya. So, display siya ani JR. What if ang kwaon na nato nga data kay kaning naasulod aning second nga array. So, kaning 2. So, ang button nimo is kwaon nimo una ang first nga array, which is kani. Then, mag-add kag another bracket para ani. So kani siya, this is index 1 sa second array. So this is supposed to display kaning 2. So nara ano siya ang multi-dimensional array. Basically na kay array within another array. So that's all for arrays.
So that ends our video report. Thank you and God bless.